Hi and welcome. Thanks to viewer feedback, I'm glad to show you how to add a tongue to your Halloween prop. I'm Brian, an effects artist for the film and TV industry, so let's get started. If you haven't seen the previous video, go check it out. You can get supplies and follow along. If you did follow along, welcome back. You'll remember we used anatomy to build basic muscle shapes, which also help shape the wrinkle directions and allows you to exaggerate the areas necessary to create expressions. The first thing I did to add a tongue was to close up the chin. That was achieved by creating a wedge, and that was coated in latex and cotton. That was all placed into the jaw and was finished off with a piece of paper towel soaked in latex to add strength until it was dry. Right now everything is very delicate, but once the latex dries, the bond will be permanent. So until then, let's take measurements on a tongue. So it's about this wide. So I transfer that measurement, and we're going to use, you can use a serrated edge knife, or you could also use a blade. Just go very careful, very slow and deliberate. You don't want any sudden movements. As far as styrofoam goes, this stuff is really cheap. It's weak. I wish I had more of a denser styrofoam, but this just came in some shipping, and I had enough to create the tongue shape that I needed. By drawing out the shape of a tongue, a top profile and a side view of what that might look like, and then took a rasp and delicately shaved into the foam. And this foam is really weak, and I was barely pushing with the rasp, just enough to sort of kind of break off really the foam balls. It wasn't really shaving. It wasn't shaping them at all. It was just sort of breaking them off. But I just knew that I needed to get the shape down. You can see here how rough it really is. So I stop a lot during this process to just check my progress. Shave on it a little bit and then look at it. A little goes a long way. You don't want to shave too far because you can't add that back. And so you're just trying to get it within range. And so eventually you're going to want to, or at least I tried to, keep the center line. I'm not sure if this really matters as much, but also the tool is serrated on one edge and flat on the other, so you can use that serrated edge to sort of dig a little groove in what I think a tongue might look like. I think it's more of a cartoon tongue than anything. I didn't use any reference here at all. But eventually you switch over to sandpaper. So that's why you're only getting that within range. You switch over to like 80 grit, something really rough, and just start sanding. And again, very lightly sanding. You'll feel some of the styrofoam beads popping off at first, but then it starts to sand and become smooth. So just go very light, and very subtle with it. You'll start to feel when it starts to sand. You'll feel the beads coming off at first, and then it starts to sand. So just stick with it, be very patient, and eventually you'll start to get a tongue shape. You can see here how rough the shaved side is versus the sanded side. The sanded sides will give us enough for the latex to work with, the latex and cotton. I cleaned the table off a little bit and poured the latex straight onto the table, and then added the cotton straight to that and started soaking the cotton through that, so that I knew that anytime the cotton was wet, that I knew that it would come from underneath, that it was completely soaked in. So I was able to lift an edge up and shove the styrofoam under the tongue, under the latex, and here came the problem. Is now what? Like, I didn't think this through. I knew I should have stuck it on a needle or something, but this happens all the time. The ADHD just like kicks in, and I get way too ahead of myself. So I had to just pick it up, and I could feel it already, like sticking to my fingers, but I just stuck with it. I didn't give up, and I just sort of wrapped the latex around to the best of my ability. But it was a mess. But it's fun. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I like doing. You know, it's messy. It's not too bad. You can peel it off your fingers later. But so anyway, so I wrapped this around, and then I used some tweezers and then pushed this into the mouth, and just kept going. Like, this was how I built it. I just didn't think much of it when I first created the original video. It just wasn't on my mind. I mean, so anyway, so here you go. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, tell your friends, all that. This was fun to make a supplemental video. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching.